Hi everyone, Stuart from Immigrate here. This morning, Immigration New Zealand released the final details of the long awaited changes to New Zealand's Skilled Residence Program. Over the next few days, I'm going to break these changes down into plain English, explain what they actually mean, and help you understand whether they could affect your own pathway to residence. Today, I want to start with the existing Skilled Migrant Category. While everyone is talking about the two brand new residence pathways, I actually think the biggest change in today's announcement is one that hasn't received nearly enough attention. It's the complete overhaul of how Immigration New Zealand assesses wages across the skilled migrant category and the work to residence programs. This change has the potential to affect almost every skilled resident applicant going forward. Let's start with what I think is the biggest change in today's announcement. On the surface, Immigration New Zealand describes this as a clarification to the skilled migrant category wage threshold rules. But in reality, I think it's much more significant than that. Under the previous settings, many applicants effectively had to satisfy two different wage thresholds. The first applied while they were building up their skilled New Zealand resident work experience. Then, by the time they became eligible to apply for residence, the skilled migrant category wage threshold may have increased. In other words, the goalposts could move while you are working towards residence. From 24th of August, that changes. Generally speaking, once you begin accruing your skilled work experience, the wage threshold that applies at that point will continue to apply when you later submit your residence application. You won't usually need to meet a higher wage threshold simply because median wages have increased while you've been working. It is important, though, to note that certain occupations have their own specific wage requirements, and there can be potential impacts if changing employment. So, why is this important? Because it gives applicants certainty. Instead of wondering whether the required wage will increase before they're ready to apply for residence, they can plan their pathway with much greater confidence. For me, this is one of the most practical and applicant-friendly changes announced today. The second major change is another one that I think many applicants will welcome. Immigration New Zealand has reduced the amount of skilled New Zealand work experience required to claim points under the skilled migrant category. In practical terms, this means some applicants may now become eligible for residence sooner than expected. If you're already working in New Zealand and have been counting down the years until you qualify, it's definitely worth revisiting your eligibility under the new settings. You may be closer than you think. Another important change relates to qualifications. All Level 7 bachelor degrees have now increased from 3 points to 4. Also, applicants who hold recognised New Zealand qualifications at levels 8 or 9 will now receive an additional point if they hold an underlying bachelor degree. Now, 1 point might not sound like much, but under the skilled migrant category, it can make all the difference. If you previously had 5 points, this additional point could now bring you up to the 6-point threshold required to apply for residence. That's a significant change for many graduates already living and working in New Zealand. There's also good news for accounting professionals. Immigration New Zealand will now recognise registration through the Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, CPA Australia and ACCA as meeting the qualification requirement under the skilled migrant category. That creates another pathway for accountants who may previously have struggled to meet the qualification requirements. It is a targeted change, but one that will be welcomed by many people in the profession. There are also a number of practical improvements that deserve a mention. English language test results for applicants that hold professional registration will now remain valid for longer, giving applicants greater flexibility when planning their residence applications. Immigration New Zealand has also clarified the qualification evidence requirements, making it easier to understand exactly what evidence will be required for overseas qualifications. These aren't necessarily headline changes, but they remove several practical hurdles that applicants and advisors have dealt with for a number of years. So, what does all of this mean? For some people, nothing will change. But for others, these amendments alone could be enough to make them eligible for residence without needing to rely on one of the new pathways. If you've previously looked at your eligibility and decided you didn't quite qualify, I think it's well worth having another look. The policy has changed, and your options may have changed with it. In part 2, we're going to look at what is probably the most anticipated announcement of all, the brand new Skilled Work Experience Residence Pathway. We'll cover who qualifies, who doesn't, the key eligibility requirements, and why I believe this pathway will create opportunities for many experienced skilled workers who previously had very limited options. If you found this helpful, follow the page because there's a lot more to unpack over the coming days. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in part 2.